All right, hello everyone. So today I thought I would go ahead and record my first deck profile. The deck that I chose for my first one, I wanted to do something a little more casual because I know there's plenty of videos out there when it comes to the most recent meta decks, the new things that have come out. But I wanted to talk about one that is one of my absolute all-time favorites, and really just finally got a little bit of support that it really needed. Is this deck tier one, tier zero? Heck no. It's probably tier two at best. But it's one of my all-time favorites, and if you're looking for something for a little bit more casual play, that you're just going to have a ton of fun with, super simple, then this is the deck for you. So, the deck, no jump scare intended here, is Mother D Reaper. The deck is really all about one thing. It is about building the number of sources under your mother until you are ready to go into your win condition, which is Reaper. So, what this guy does, if you don't know, he has Rush, and it's a 20 play cost, 15k. And he has the effect, when you play this Digimon, you may trash 7 or more Digivolution cards from under one of your Mother D Reapers to reduce this Digimon's play cost to 0. So, things like Psychmon, they would prevent this because it is reducing a play cost, but Psychmon is going to ruin your mother effect as well, which I'll get to in just a moment. So, the secondary effect for this is when attacking, you may place 2 searchers from your trash under this Digimon in any order as its Digivolution cards to unsuspend this Digimon. So the whole thing with this is, you maybe get 1 or 2 chips on your opponent over the course of the game, and then really what you're planning on doing is you're just going to swing in. You get to unsuspend by putting searchers from your trash underneath him, and then you just keep doing that until they're dead. So with this deck, really, once you go into the first Reaper, if you don't end up winning, if you end up hitting a security bomb, usually that's going to be game. Unless you're playing against a really slow opponent, then maybe you could get another Reaper. But usually, once you go into Reaper, you want to be hitting for game at that point. So I am currently running 3. However, a little bit later in the video, I'll talk about some tech choices that I would probably mix into this deck to help it out a little bit. And in that case, I would drop this guy down to 2. But I'll talk about that just a little bit more throughout the video. So we will go ahead and set these up. So, of course, you run 4 of the egg. The Mother D Reaper egg, it is always unaffected by your opponent's effects. And then it has a really powerful effect for its archetype, which is if you don't have another Mother D Reaper in play, you place one of your searchers from in play or from your hand under this Digimon uh, as its bottom Digivolution card. So typically you're not adding from hand because you do want to use your searchers effect, which if you didn't know is just a draw one on play. And so typically you would play a searcher and then you would use the mother effect to immediately suck it up, or if you had one on the field at the start of the turn, you could suck it up as well. But the biggest difference between a lot of the mother control decks that you'll see out there and the in archetype is you pretty much get out your first mother and then you never promote another one unless this one dies to some unforeseen circumstances at the beginning of the turn. Sorry, not at the beginning of the turn. I meant if this does die kind of early in the game, you could potentially promote a second one and build up the sources. But at that point, once Mother dies, it's not good for this deck, which is why she's unaffected most of the time. But she has a second effect. When you play a card with D Reaper and its traits from your hand, you can reduce the play cost by 1 for each of this Digimon's Digivolution cards. Now, notice that it doesn't specify what has to be in her sources. It's just her sources. So any card in her sources counts towards that reduction. And so let's go ahead. Now that you know the win con and the purpose of the Mother D Reaper uh, card, let's go ahead and talk about accelerating to your win condition. So, of course, the main sources that you are going to be putting under there are these searchers. This is one of the few cards in the game that you are allowed to run more than 4 copies of. You can run up to 50. Um, so what you do with these guys is essentially, if you don't have a searcher in play, if this is in your hand, you can go ahead and play it for 1. So that is the important thing. So let's say I start my first turn and my opponent gives me 1 memory. Absolutely, one of the most perfect plays you could probably do in this deck is you go ahead and you take this Mother D Reaper and you promote her. You have a searcher that you most likely played on your first turn before she was promoted, and you go ahead and you suck this up. You can play another searcher, draw another card, and then you can't immediately suck this up, but you could go ahead and you could reduce your next card. Typically, one thing you want to be careful of in this deck is you don't want to play out your searcher until you are until you're sure that you can safely put it under Mother. It's not always the best thing unless you're trying to memory choke your opponent to play out a searcher and leave it there. It's really just you have a finite number of them in the deck, and Reaper does require them, and you can run out of them in your hand despite having so many. So you always want to be careful with the searcher. So anyway, so for my deck, I am currently running 17. That is, I would say, kind of middle of the road. I would say the maximum you'd ever run is maybe 18 or 19 if you wanted to be extra careful. But I think the bottom end, you could run 15 or 16 of them and be fine. Personally, 17 feels good if you're just running this archetype and you're not running any other cards. But I would say, probably 16 is best. I'm just, right now, I don't have any tech cards in this build, but I'm going to talk about those techs again in just a little bit. So we're running 17 of those searchers at the moment. We, of course, have the 3 Reapers mentioned before. So now let's talk about, okay, how can I accelerate and get more sources under my Mother? Because Reaper needs me to trash 7. And there's a lot of other effects that require a certain amount of sources, or they depend on the number of sources in Mother. So what can we do to speed that up a little bit? Well, a very common card people have run ever since D-Reaper came out in the deck. As soon as we got BT9, people immediately put in X Antibody. Now, you are never going to use the all turns effect or the when attacking effect. This is a nice little security bomb to potentially steal turn because it just gains you a memory and adds to hand. But it also accelerates your Mother by adding another source for her reduction effect, for the Reaper trash, for some other cards that I'll talk about in a minute. It's just, once you get one of these, that's all you need. You don't really need the second one. We just have 2 in here for consistency's sake and just being able to see it at least decently early in the game. So that is a tech choice to accelerate it. And then this is one card that you probably didn't expect was Mother support in BT20, but very similar to X Antibody, it is Singularity of Chaos. So it has the exact same effect in security. It's gain 1 and add to hand. And then the main effect, you can play this because it's a white card and your entire deck is white. So you don't need to worry about color requirements, but the main effect is basically, you can play out an Excel trait from the hand without paying, or with the play cost reduced by 4. We don't care about that. We're not running Excel cards. The important part is then place this card as any one of your Digimon's bottom Digivolution cards. So we are going to now notice this one doesn't say without the card in the sources. So with X Antibody, you can only put 1 under there because it says you can't put it under 1 with X Antibody in the sources. But Singularity of Chaos, if you get both of these, fairly early on, this is a great way to pass turn. You play out a Searcher for 1, you use the Mother effect to play out another D-Reaper card, basically for free or really cheap, and then you can end turn Memory Choking with a Singularity of Chaos, and it just, again, accelerates your win condition. It does have an inherited effect, but this Mother D-Reaper is not Chaos Mon, so it would do anything. So those are kind of the spicy ramping techs. But now let's talk about what the archetype itself has to speed up your game plan. So the very first one is I run 4 copies of ADR04 Bubbles. So Bubbles essentially has the security effect and on play are very similar. So security, you may place a Searcher from in play or from your hand under a Mother D-Reapers as its bottom Digivolution card. There's no limit on this. You can just do that if this card is hit in security. You don't get to add this to hand, but that's already, it's ramping up your game plan. On play is essentially the same thing. Place a Searcher from in play or from your hand under Mother D-Reaper. So once you do play this guy out, and you get that effect to put a Searcher down, then or into Mother, then you're pretty much just swinging in with this guy. He is one of your few cards that you're using to chip and just deal some early damage and hopefully hit some options and get him out of there in security. Another thing that it can be used for, the Searchers that are being put under your Mother have the effect, your turn, all of your Digimon with the D-Reaper in their trait get 1 KDP. So, fairly early on, probably turn 2 or 3, if you're ramping at a good pace with the Searchers, you can already be swinging this in at like 7 or 8k, and, you can swing over Digimon that are going to give you problems or potentially turn into bigger problems. You can also swing into security and just do that chip like I was mentioning to make an easier win condition for Reaper later. So that is your main and favorite way of ramping. The next way is ADR01 Jerry. So what Jerry does is Jerry is a 5 KDP, 5 cost, and it has a main effect. You may suspend this Digimon to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, place 1 Searcher among them under one of your Mother D-Reapers as its bottom Digivolution card, then place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck. So the reason that I am only running this at 3, you would almost think, wow, that is a crazy effect. I need to be using that all the time. It is really good, but the problem is that card can bottom deck Reaper and in essence, your win condition. It can also bottom deck a lot of other very critical pieces that you may need in the deck. Like your Singularities, it's going to bottom deck your X antibodies, it bottom decks a lot of stuff. Now, it is very good for ramp, especially after you get Reaper in your hands, but if you bottom deck 1 or 2 of those Reapers and then, you only have 1 copy left and you have the option of playing a Jerry, I would not, because most likely you're going to hit that Reaper and your entire win condition just went out the window. So that is kind of the cautionary tale of Jerry, but it is a very good card once you kind of have a couple of these ramp options and, a few different options in your hand for the game plan. So that is really, those are all your ramp cards, the 2 Singularities, the 2 X antibodies, the 3 Jerrys, and the 4 Bubbles. So next, let's talk about defense. So for defense, really, you have, because this deck really, in essence, is all about building up your Mother until the point when Reaper can just go to town and win the game. So it's really a stall deck, in essence. In this set, we got a field, people are calling them the field spells of Digimon, but we got the new D-Reaper Zone. So D-Reaper Zone is, it's a very cool card in, I would say, like the middle of the game. You don't really want to be playing this on turn one because it's not really going to do a whole lot for you, but the more sources you get under Mother, the better it gets. So it has a few effects. So let's start with the main effect. If you have no face-up security cards, by trashing your top security card, place this card face up as your top security. So it is pretty exposed being the top of your security versus a lot of other cards in the game right now that go to the bottom, so they're a little safer. So, but the security effect is opponent's turn when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks. If all of your Digimon and Tamers have the D-Reaper trait, for each Digivolution card of one of your Mother D-Reapers, the attacking Digimon gets minus 1,000 for the turn. That is really, really crazy in the middle of the game, just because you can completely protect yourself from basically any rookie rush sort of strategy. Anything that would be attacking with, with low DP Digimon, that is a devastating card in the middle of the game when you have like 4 or 5 sources under Mother. And even level 4s, it can shut down a lot of them. So very good card because it's also not limited once per turn. So it's anytime your opponent decides to swing in. So, of course, that does also come with a drawback, though, that everything that you own on the field and, you know, it all has to be the D-Reaper trait. So, I know that restriction lists just dropped. So before we might have run Shoto in here, he would have been perfect for this deck. But because of D-Reaper Zone, we cannot run Shoto because we would be doing a trade-off. But hey, it's gonna be restricted soon anyway, so perfect time to let D-Reaper Zone shine. So that is your first the brand new shiny card that we got. So now let's talk about some of the old ones. So actually, I did forget, we do have one more new card. So that new card is another copy of ADR01 Jerry. So I am running 4 of these because I am convinced this is the best support that this deck could have possibly gotten. It absolutely needed this Jerry, especially with how many things nowadays can easily attack over or raid over Mother. Because the one weakness of Mother is that she can be swung over. If your opponent has a 15k or higher Digimon and they can attack unsuspended, then your entire strategy behind this deck is cooked. So this new Jerry, it is a 2000 DP 5 cost. On play, for each of your Digivolution cards under one of your Mother D-Reapers, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 1,000 for the turn. So that in and of itself, again, very similar to D-Reaper Zone. It can, put a lot of DP in the middle to the end of the game. Then the main effect, so you can basically play this and then activate the main effect. The main effect is going to be place this Digimon as the bottom Digivolution card of any of your Mother D-Reapers without a Jerry in the Digivolution cards. So you can only have one of these in the Mother sources at a time, but the effect that really makes this good is the inherited effect. So, opponent's turn, when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks, you may play a Jerry from this Digimon's Digivolution cards without paying the cost. If you did, you may change the attack target to the Digimon played by this effect. So, that is just absolutely crazy. Because right now you have to deal so much with raid, and it's so sad when this deck's entire win condition is just stuck behind one card. And in the past, we didn't have a way to protect ourselves. We had to run other cards like blockers or Shoto to give, our excess cards like our Jerrys, our Bubbles, our Searchers. We had to give them blocker to protect Mother, and they were easy to remove. This Jerry can't be removed because it's in an invulnerable Digimon sources. So it also dodges all of their when attacking effects because all of their attacking effects have to resolve before Jerry is played out. So That's a huge benefit of this card. It's perfect because let's say you have D Reaper Zone in play on top of this, and let's say you have like 4 sources. Well, that opponent's Digimon, they just lost 4K when they're swinging into your mother. Okay, well, let's say they were already 19K. Well, guess what? Now you can play out a Jerry as well, and you just made your opponent's Digimon that was 19 down to 11K. They just die to swinging into mother. So, that DP reduction, you can also use that to snipe in another opponent's Digimon. If there's just no way you can save Mother, you can redirect to Jerry. And, if they can't remove this after you do play it, on your next turn, you just stick it right back under Mother using that main effect, and you're golden. So, very, very good card for defense. Now, let's move on to the last defense, and really the one that this deck is infamous for, and that is the Gatekeeper. So you always run 4 copies of Gatekeeper, always for Jerry. The security effect of Gatekeeper, which is why he's so strong, is you just get to play him without battling, and then on play, if you have a mother in play, recover 1. Um, those are both really good effects. So it's just security, pop out, play, recover 1. So really good. But then opponent's turn, while your Mother D Reaper has 6 or more Digivolution cards in play, all of your opponent's Digimon gain security -1. Yeah. So this guy he's just going to stop your opponent from basically doing anything. Until they remove the Gatekeeper, they are going to be stuck with security -1, or if you get a second one, security -2. There have been times when I have 3 out, on the field, and it's just, yeah, your opponent can't do anything until they remove him. They have to address him, which gives you more time to build up your sources, get to your win condition. So it also, on your turn, with all the searchers underneath, this is most likely, by the time you get this out into play or want it in play, he's a 16K body that can just start swinging over Digimon if you want to, leave him a little bit vulnerable by being suspended. So, very good card. You have to run 4 of those. You're not running D Reaper if you don't run 4 of those. So yeah, that is the defense of the deck. Now, then we have our consistency and just some little tech cards that help us out. So, consistency's sake, we have a Pendulum Feet. This is another one of your chipping Digimon. So you play it, you get the on play, and then just like Bubbles, it's used for chipping and killing other Digimon that are giving you trouble. On play, you reveal 3. You add any D Reaper trait card and 1 searcher, and then you bottom deck the rest. So very simple, just like most other searchers in the game. It can grab 2 searchers if that's what you reveal. I've revealed 3 searchers plenty of times, so that is a thing. But then our last main card in my build of the pure D Reaper deck, that is 4 of this Jerry. This Jerry is just like this Digimon Jerry. This Tamer Jerry is just absolutely fantastic for the deck. It has an on-place reveal top 4. You can add any D Reaper trait card to the hand, return the rest of the bottom of the deck. So it can grab your Reaper, it can grab some of your defense, it can grab some of your ramping, it can just grab a searcher if you need it. Or even another Jerry. It just has to be basically anything D Reaper, and then the main effect of this card, which I think is the better of the 2 effects, is by returning this Tamer to the bottom of the deck, you may play 1 3-cost or lower Digimon card with the D Reaper trait from your hand without paying the cost. But then for each Digivolution card of 1 of your Mother D Reapers, add 1 to the effect that this can play. So that part is very important because, the only thing that's really crazy expensive in this deck is your Gatekeeper and your Reaper. I've played Reaper with reduction one time ever, and that was in a very grindy long matchup. Um, but most of the time, you can get out a Gatekeeper, one of these Jerry's. It's absolutely insane. So this card I feel is a 4 of. I know some people, if you really wanted to tech out some cards, you could bring it down to 3, but I think that this is a very, very solid 4 of. So that's pretty much the deck profile. What I'm going to show you next is, okay, well, what would I do if I wanted just a little bit more removal power? So everybody's favorite 2 Digimon, this completely depends on the meta at the time, but 2 very good options for this deck, Death Exmon and Medieval Gallantmon. I think that's very predictable, but you know, Medieval Gallantmon, he's very good against stack decks, and he's also pretty decent against wide decks as well. So, he's a super solid card. I honestly think that most of the time I would take Medieval over Death Exmon, but there are certain metas where Death Exmon would be better. If your opponent is playing a ton of Tamers, so you're just gonna get him out for free. If they're just playing a bunch of level 5s or 4s and swarming the board, low level stuff that can easily be removed, then boom, Death Exmon is your guy. But most of the time, I would suggest running Medieval Gallantmons if they're not too pricey, because I know they're pretty expensive. So what would I remove if I was going to, let's say I wanted to run 2 Medieval Gallantmon, or heck, even 3? What are the drawbacks? The main drawback is your D-Reaper zone. This card is not going to function if you have one of these alternate removal cards in play. That is really the only downside, but I think that having these to kind of come back if you're struggling to keep your opponent's board down is worth more than the D-Reaper zone. So if it were me personally, let's say I wanted to run 3, either 3 Death Exmon, 3 Medievals, or any combination of those. I would remove a D-Reaper zone. I would also remove I would say removing a Searcher is fair. And I would also say removing the 3rd Reaper is fair. And that would probably be the order as well. So if I only wanted to run 2, I'd put Reaper back. If I only wanted to run 1, I'd put the Searcher back, and then, so on and so forth. You could cut other things, like if you didn't want the consistency with X Antibody, you just wanted the 1 copy, you could do that. If you fear Jerry is going to bottom deck all your critical pieces, then you could get rid of one of these Jerrys. There's a lot of ways in this deck for you to ramp. You don't need to have all of them, if that makes sense. So that is the deck profile. Let me know what you guys thought. This is first one I've really done. So just I'll go ahead and lay these guys out and just let you see that last little bit there. And yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know. I'd love to do more profiles. I've wanted to do them for a while, but I've just had kind of that fear of starting to make the content. So if you guys liked it, please let me know. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. I'm not really planning on covering every single meta deck. I'm kind of wanting to hit more off meta and maybe more of the fun decks, the less I go burr and win on turn 2 sort of thing. So if you guys like that, please let me know. And yeah, thank you for watching.